Can you actually live off grid in Northern California? My name's Alex. I'm with eXp Land and Ranch, and I sell land and ranch properties here in Northern California. And I'm surprised at how often I get clients that are coming to me saying, look, I want to live off grid. I want to unplug. I don't want to be part of the rat race. I want to live in a sustainable property disconnected from all of society that we have today. So I wanted to jump in and go over what it takes to live off grid in Northern California. Now, you do a quick search of Google. This is the Google image for off grid, and here's someone live off grid for 14 years. They do a YouTube channel, plenty of YouTube channels on this stuff. But it just goes over different ways to live off grid. And when you're looking in that space, it's always good to go living off grid. What else are people searching for in that space? So this is what other people are searching for. Can you legally live off grid in the US? Is it worth it? How much does it cost to live completely off grid? What's the easiest way? Why is living off grid illegal? These are questions people are searching for, and I think it shows me at least that as people go down this path of really looking into living off grid, you see other issues that pop up along the way. So what I want to do is jump in and just take a look at what it takes to live off grid here in Northern California. There are Reddit pages dedicated to off grid. I post in there with some of my content. And then, of course, you can go into the Facebook and YouTube. They both have pages about off grid living. And I put together this website here. These are all the land listings in the Central Valley. We're talking about Sacramento, Placer, Sacramento, El Dorado, Yolo. These are all the land listings out there. So if you're looking for land, I'll put this link in the description and you can start your search there. Not all of them are off grid. I'd say that probably only maybe 10% could be considered off grid. But it's a great resource to go in and just start looking at what's available for land listings in the area. So let's jump into it. These are 7 things nobody tells you. I think the title is a little bit of a clickbait, but these are just 7 things really that if you haven't been in this space, 7 things you really need to watch out for. Number 1, solar and power. Obviously, you got to have power. I think with today's technology, with everything that's happened in solar in the last 20, 25 years, I think the power capabilities of solar with backup batteries are better than they've ever been. Few people would argue with me on that one. Water. Water is a huge consideration for obvious reasons. The basic human element of life is water, and a lot of people that live off grid also want to raise their own foods. Fire hazard and insurance. This is a big one. I was looking at an off-grid property for a client with a client of mine, and really there was only one way in, one way out, and it was in a heavily wooded area. And I just said, you really need to think about how you're going to get out of here in case of a wildland fire. And we've seen plenty in our area. It's one of those realities of living out in a rural area and definitely in the woods. Permits and what you can build. Obviously a huge consideration. A lot of people that go in and do off grid, they're adding value to their property. I'm going to have this add value. I'm going to go and do this, and I'm going to add value, and then it's going to be worth more. Well, it's only worth more if you have permits recorded against it. And I'll get into that. Internet and cell phone. Now, this one could go either direction. This is going to sound weird, but when I go on vacation, my wife and I love to go camping with a travel trailer, this sort of thing. I always ask her, will I have cell phone coverage? Because if you want to get busy as a realtor, just plan a vacation. Never fails. You're going to get busy as soon as you plan a vacation. And so it's something to think about when you're going off grid. I know a lot of people are like, look, I want to go off grid. I don't want to be connected. I don't want to be connected to the web. I don't want to have to answer my cell phone. I don't care about the internet. I don't care about whatever channel you're watching this on. I want to be disconnected, but it's consideration. The true all-in cost. As you go in and look at different types of properties, there's different costs associated with it. When you get into drilling wells, when you get into perk tests for your septic systems, these sort of things, they all have different costs to them. And also, along with the cost, are the county mitigation fees. What is the county going to charge you um, for that permit to build? And then we're going to get into look at what regions actually work, because not all regions work. You know, if it's a highly regulated region, you know, that's not going to be ideal. Is there water there? You know, we're going to get into all these sort of things, accessibility. So let's jump in and take a look. So let's take a look at solar and power. Solar and power for your off-grid. Obviously, you're going to have solar panels. I've seen a few people use windmills. Some people use turbines and creeks and that sort of thing. Not really that common. The number one power is solar. Solar panels can vary in size or cost, rather, according to the array. You got wattages to consider. And then you got to make sure that the sun hits the solar panels, so you have clearings and trees and that sort of thing. And so the solar panels are probably the most cheap, affordable part of that equation when you're living off grid. We're not talking about connecting to power. We're talking about not including the local utility and just being your own. Battery storage. Battery storage is amazing these days. I've heard of some people going out and getting electric cars and parking those on the property and using those as their battery storage. Whatever the case may be, if you go with the big battery bank that's being sold by the big companies out there, whatever it is, there's a budget for that. 12,000, 15,000, whatever it is. And then the other thing about batteries is how long do they last? And you have to keep that in mind as well. But between the two for off-grid solar, um, I've seen the budgets 25 to 60,000 to be your own utility. And then when you consider what most people pay for electricity for PG&E, if you will, you know, the payoff on that could be 3 to 5 years, and you know, it basically is paid for itself. But there is the ongoing maintenance as well. So you also have to look at the multi-fuels. And so it's not only solar, but you also, most people have propane as well for their cooking and heating water, and then a generator for emergency reserve. So propane can be expensive, $800, $1,500 a year, depending on how much you use it. But I find that with the clients I've had that's gone into the off-grid, they're very creative when it comes to the use of propane and solar and trying to keep their costs down. With the solar, there's also permits that are required for that. Um, you know, the thing about solar is, yeah, you're generating electricity, but also could be a fire danger. And so that's why the local code enforcement wants to step in and have their 2 cents in that. So that's what solar and power looks like. Now let's talk about water, basic human life. If you guys watch my Bull Trail Academy, which is my real estate training channel, I always end it by saying, hey, remember to drink water, especially in the summer when it's super hot. It's essential to life, and it kills most of the off-grid land opportunities that I get involved in, because if you don't have water, you don't have basic human life. And so look at these different areas where you can accumulate the water. Well water, obviously, you bring a rig out there, you drill down, you have your own well. I live on a property with a well and deal with wells on a daily basis. And especially when I get into land purchases, it's always the big hot button topic. If you don't have water, you don't have a deal. Well is the number one. Springs are another consideration. I did do a property up outside of Alta, California, and it didn't have a well, but it has a spring. And they collected that spring water into retention tanks, filtered it, and they used it. It was good water too. Creeks and rivers, it can be complicated. You got to have riparian rights, legal rights to use the water, and there's a lot of nuance to it. And again, once you get the water out of the river, you have to have that filtration system to be able to have it be usable. And then there's rainwater collection. Kind of self-explanatory. Obviously, you can't rely on it year round. It's a very seasonal thing. I know some people that are putting big underground tanks and then they're going in and storing it up, but it's supplemental only, but it is something to consider in that space. So, fire hazard insurance. It's huge consideration, and I know a lot of people that are going off grid. They're like, I don't need insurance. I don't need insurance. Well, you need insurance, and you need to consider the fire. Um, Interesting. I had an opportunity to list a $5 million. That was the suggested list price. 130-acre equestrian ranch up here in Northern California. And I turned down the listing. I just flat turned it down. And people are like, Alex, why are you turning down listings? I said, you put 18 horses in that barn and you have all this amenity. There's only one road in, one road out. I said, I don't know anyone's going to buy this. The property had been on the market for almost 2 years and didn't sell. And I looked at that as the number one problem. They also couldn't get fire insurance on it. So it doesn't matter if you have a $5 million equestrian ranch or you have an off-grid property. Insurance and fire is a major consideration. And in California, there is a lot of laws that are coming on the books right now for defensible space in the single family residential envelope. I have seen legislation that's going to require a 10-foot barrier around the house where you could have nothing combustible. And that's because the insurance companies are they're going broke trying to insure property in California. And really, it has to do with all of the coastal states of California, because on the East Coast, you have hurricanes and floods. So it's something to really consider when you're going off grid. Now, permits and what you can build. Just because you're off grid doesn't mean it's the Wild West. I sold a property up outside of Nevada City, and in the process of selling that property, we found an unpermitted septic tank. There's no test on it, there's no permit, but there was a septic tank in that ground. The county came out and said, nope, no way, no how. That needs to be ripped out. It needs to be abandoned. It was a huge environmental issue. And the reason they had done that, the reason they had done the unpermitted septic is because it didn't pass the perk test. See right here, perk test. Got to have your perk test done. Unpermitted structures is a huge problem when it comes to these rural properties, and we see it all the time as realtors. And I've been to properties where it's been a 2-unit property, only zoned for one. No other permits existed for the second unit, but it existed. It was there. It has no value. It has no value, and you can get your property red tagged, and you're done at that point. So you got to pay attention to these things when you're out there evaluating um, off-grid property, and you have to look out for the zoning traps. The Williams Act is a great way to have lower property taxes, but you have to understand what the Williams Act means and what it takes to be able to use that as an off-grid property. Amazingly, most people that buy off-grid property have this assumption in their head that they're going to be able to subdivide their 10-acre property into 10 1-acre properties, and they're going to develop it, live there, and make a lot of money and move on. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You have to understand what the zoning is. Now, internet and cell phone coverage. I'll just come out and say it. When you get into the rural out outside areas, you won't have cell phone coverage. You won't have internet. I hear that Starlink is really making some inroads into that, but even Starlink, you got to have the right path to the satellite and all that stuff. I'm finding that most people that want to go off grid, they don't want to be connected to the internet. They're just done. And a lot of people, Gen X, my generation, life before internet was so much simpler. I don't blame them. But if you think that you're going to go off grid and have cell phone coverage, it's something to really think about. Now, the true costs of going off grid are in these things that we've covered, and they vary greatly from city to city, county to county, area to area. Sometimes I'm amazed. I'm amazed at how a well on one lot can be 25,000, and you drive a mile down the road and it's 80 to 100,000. It's real. And when you go into this, you have to have your eyes wide open to understand, what those costs may be. Septic system, making sure that you can put the system in and what that system's going to cost. I know that a lot of in the more developed areas, especially here in South Placer County where I am, where most of the very desirable lots have already been developed, now we're looking at the less desirable lots that have the more expensive infrastructure, and a lot of that's going on right now. Um, Propane setup. I've seen circumstances where people are bringing in the little 5 pound propane tanks and using those and switching them out. And then I've also seen obviously the big tanks that you put out there. All depends on what you're into. Driveways and roadways, it's not just having your driveway in, but who's going to maintain that driveway, especially when you get up above the snow line and you get up above Alta, and you can have 3 to 4 feet of snow in December, January, February, March, and you have to understand who's going to clear that. And then after it's cleared and you get into the spring and summer and all the runoff has happened, someone has to go in and maintain that road. These are all things you have to consider when you're going off grid. Grading and pad prep. This is a huge consideration because grading permits are a real thing. The county, the local building code gets involved in this. And these are things you have to do in your due diligence ahead of time. And then the permit and county fees. County's always going to get paid. Mitigation fees are there to help support the infrastructure, the schools, fire departments, law enforcement, whatever it is. All those fees are in there. And so when you go into this off-grid, building off-grid, over and above your land cost, the cost for infrastructure, building, permitting, and all of that, just to get it ready to go, 92 to 320. I've seen that 320 number. It's real. So let's talk about the different regions in Northern California where you could possibly go in and do off-grid. Sacramento Valley, you're talking about Butte, Glen, Clahusa, Tehama, Shasta Valley. These areas, they have advantages in terms of infrastructure. And fire risk is a little bit less, but the biggest thing is the summer heat. I don't look forward to July, August, and September in the valley. Today it's going to be 100 degrees today. I have plans to swim this afternoon. Take it easy, be out of the heat. But if you're living off grid, man, those summer heats can really get to you. Now, El Dorado, Placer, Nevada, Amador County, these are the most sought after for off-grid. But when you're out there looking at them, one of the big drawbacks is having sloped properties. And so when we're going in and looking at these with clients, we're looking at these different things. What are you going to do with the farm, with the property? Are you going to have orchards out there? Are you going to have livestock? Are you going to have gardens? Whatever it is, the terrain is can vary greatly. And so it's funny. You can look at it. Oh, here's a 5 acre property. This is perfect. It's priced right. And then you go out there and it's like, yeah, that's not going to work because it slopes off from the access point and it's unusable usable. The northern ranges, most affordable as you get up past Chico and into the foothills up there. We find a lot of affordability, but it's also very remote. And if that's really what you want to do, that is probably the best off-market or off-grid property place to search. But it's going to be very limited services. Your distance to the towns can be quite long. And in fact, I know a lot of people that live up outside of Chico, Butte County, that's where I was raised. You could always tell the mountain people coming down from the mountains to go to Costco, and they load up with hundreds of dollars worth of supplies because they just don't come to town that often because it's so far away. Um, the northern valleys, you're looking up near the Redding area. A lot of agriculture up there. A lot of water up there. Sacramento River begins up there. Fire risk can be less, and I really think it's an underserved market. I, in fact, sold a 160-acre ranch up there with 2 units on it for $275,000. It took me 18 months to sell that property, and I had to do a wrap in order to sell it, or the existing financing stayed in place. I did get it sold. I got both ends of that deal too. It did take me a long time. It was 4 hours. It took me 4 hours each way to go and drive to that property. It's kind of funny. I did an open house there. I drove 4 hours to do an open house. I advertised it up there in that market. I was amazed at the amount of people that showed up. I still am working with clients from that property. I think it's been 3 years now. So yeah, let's wrap this up. The bottom line is that off-grid in Northern California is real, but there's a gap between what YouTube wants to tell you it is and what reality is. And water, power, sewer, huge considerations. I can't stress that enough. Um, the fire hazard, getting fire insurance and all of that, and then really getting into what's allowed up there. So I have two resources for you as I wrap this up. One here is your off-grid land readiness worksheet. This is a worksheet I've put together, kind of summarizes what I've pointed out here, and it allows you to go in and evaluate your off-grid properties. And this is a worksheet of just things to look at, look for. The other resource that I will give you is this website that I've put together. It's all of the land and ranch. All right, well, let's say land and ranch. These are all of the land listings in Northern California. And so this page is evergreen, which means it's constantly updating with most current information. And you can use this to go and look for off-grid property. And I haven't put any price limits on it or anything like that. There's one for 63,000. Here's one for 1.9 million. So it's a huge, it's whatever's currently listed is what's in there. And then if you want to go up and get it, if you want to go in and get a very specific search about where you're looking, just hit me up and we can put together a specific search just for you so you're not looking all over the valley. Or perhaps you want some of these other areas. I just limited it to the valley floor, Quad County area of Sacramento. We have other areas available. So again, my name is Alex. I'm with eXp Land and Ranch. I'm here in Northern California. The video behind me right here is Folsom Lake. I'm a huge mountain biker. I mountain bike out at Folsom Lake a couple times a week. Beautiful out there, fast flowing and fun if you're into mountain biking. It's a fun area to go. Simple for me. I just live around the corner from it. But if you're into land and ranch and really want to get serious about it, please reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you about what it is you're looking for, where you want to buy, and what kind of land and ranch you're looking for off grid in this context. So that's what I have for you guys. Again, I'm doing this whole video series on breaking down what it is to buy land and ranch in Northern California. I did a previous video on 7 things I wish I would have known before I bought land and ranch in California. I'm just trying to point these things out because each region, each state is a little bit different when it comes to purchasing land and ranch property. And as somebody that specializes in it, I just think it's important to get out there and try and communicate this message. So if you know someone that is looking for property, please send them this video. I'd love for them to see the video, understand what we're doing. I'm going to attach that worksheet. It'll be in a link in the description. Or if you have a piece of land, and you're like, I don't know what to do with this thing. I don't know what it should be listed at. I don't know the price of it. I don't even know how to sell it. I don't know anything. Just reach out to me. I specialize in land and ranch, and I do quite a few land sales, both on the listing side and the purchase side. So thank you. Please do your thing. Give me a thumbs up. Give me some comments. Share this around, and I will catch you on the next video.